And we're back tying the RS2, aka the Rim Semblance, aka the fish catcher. In terms of legendary patterns that catch fish and are super easy to tie, this is definitely one of those patterns. This particular one we're going to tie is the CDC Wing. I have a ton of these in my fly box. They're super easy to whip up. Let's jump right into it. I'll start this by loading up a TMC 101. This happens to be a size 20. You can also tie an RS2 on a curved shank or an emerger hook. For this particular one, I'm going to tie it on a straight shank. So next I'm going to grab some thread. This is uni thread in the gray shade. And I'm just going to start some thread wraps a little bit behind the hook eye. Leave about a hook eye gap right behind. I'm just going to wrap rearward. Just snip that off. I'm going to use almost like an olive blue dun type color. It might look different on camera, but these are just microfibrils. I'm going to take out 2 and I'm going to lay this flat on top of the hook shank. Get that tied in there. Since the RS2 is basically just a Mayfly imitation, I like to leave the tail just a little bit longer. I'll actually pull this in just a little bit, probably twice the hook shank would be a good bet. Right about there, that looks good. Before I split the tail, I'm going to wrap forward just to help building up some of that bulk. Get in here, trim that up. Now I'll come right back and try to keep my thread flat. Okay, so the method I like to use to split the tails, I do this on all of my other flies that have tails like this, including if they're flourofibre or if they're microfibrils. So I'm going to split that. I'm going to pull it apart with my finger. And then once I have this split apart, I'm going to get in there in between with my thread. Make sure you're not tying this with your thread super far from the hook shank. You want to have this a little bit close, so that'll just make it easier to manage. So I'll go in between and I'll pull that forward, wrap up, wrap back down. And just to sort of keep these from flapping down, I'm going to wrap once behind, and that'll lock it in for us. Next thing I'm going to add in is a dubbing body. This is just gray, super fine dubbing. You don't want to go too crazy with this stuff. I'm just going to take a little pinch out. One of the hardest things to do when tying an RS2 is to get the taper right, to get the body right. And it's always easier to add more than it is to take off, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm just going to add in a little bit at a time, maybe just like 1.5 inches. So we'll make some touching wraps going forward. So we got our tail split in the back, we got our dubbing body. Next up is to add the CDC wing. So this is a puff, meaning that it comes together on a stem. Sometimes I like to split these in half, especially if I'm going to tie in like a 24 or even a 26. But for a size 20, I think one whole CDC puff looks just fine. I don't think that's going to affect the sink rate or whatever. I'm going to pinch this halfway through with the stem pointing towards the eye. And I'm just going to make a light wrap and then a hard wrap. So I'm just going to cover up some of that bulk in the front. Last thing we want to do here is get just a little bit extra of that super fine dubbing. And you really don't want to overdo this part because you don't want to crowd the hook eye. So I just put maybe, probably less than 1/4 inch and super thin. You can see what I'm going to do here is one wrap behind the wing, and then I'm going to go in the front. I can actually add just a bit more thread, wrap that up. All right, it's looking good. I'm just going to grab my whip finish tool, but before I do that, I'm just going to paint a little bit of this UV resin onto the thread. That way we can just cook it up once we're done. Go ahead, give that a trim. I'm going to angle my scissors down just a bit and trim. By all means, this is a guide fly, super simple, quick and easy. Thank you guys so much for watching. In the meantime, go fill your boxes up with these, tie them in all sorts of different colors, go catch a big one. See you in the next video.